Hello, and welcome to Secrets of Saturn. I am Jason Lindgren, your host. On this episode, we are bringing back Dr. Johan Oldenkamp. We are going to be discussing his biblical end times prophecies that he has translated from the original Greek. Dr. Johan H. Oldenkamp was a professor of knowledge transfer, innovation, and entrepreneurship at the Stenden University. In the autumn of 2008, he consciously resigned that appointment in order to devote all his time, energy, and savings to the further development of holy science. Since then, he lives, by his own choice, without income from a job or unemployment benefit. Before his professorship, Johan worked as a researcher and lecturer at the University of Groningen, as a member of the scientific staff of the Dutch Telematics Institute, and as a management consultant at Ernst & Young Consulting and its successors, as a freelance trainer, teacher, consultant, and coach, and also as a martial arts teacher. Johan graduated in cognitive psychology. Next, he completed a postgraduate education in knowledge engineering, and he got a PhD for researching how to combine artificial intelligence heuristics with operations research algorithms. On Holy Science, Johan has successfully reunified all pure sciences, all correct philosophies, and all true spiritual teachings, including the truthful parts of each religion, into a logical whole that he named Holy Science. Holy Science integrates all knowledge concealed in ancient scriptures with all modern-day findings. Johan, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you back to Secrets of Saturn. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jason, and thank you very much for having me again. I'm really looking forward to have this talk with you.
So am I. I think you've got some incredibly interesting work to discuss here. And we're going to be going over your translations from the original Greek on end times prophecies. So if you'd like to go right into it, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I've to be honest, I've been reading the Bible text for long, but I always thought that the King James Version was the best one to work with, the most original one. And it was a big shock for me to discover that there are many huge errors in that version. And the only real way to do it is to go back to the original Greek version. And there was at that time a king, or pharaoh, or like to call it, the ruler of Egypt from the Greek Empire, from Macedonian, when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. So later on, many people from Macedonia became ruler over Egypt. And there was one ruler who, I forgot his name, but doesn't really matter too much, who came across those ancient writings from what we now call Palestine, were actually Phoenician writings, but it doesn't really matter too much. And he wanted those writings to be part of the library of Alexandria. So he ordered people, scholars, to translate from that strange language, which is actually a very strange dialect. Ketaf Ifri is the name, but that's not important either. Anyway, to make a long story not too long, in order to get a Greek version, he ordered those men to translate it, and in total 70 men worked on it. It started around 250 before our current era, and it continued all the way until about 130 before our current era. So more than a century, people were working on this, and those translated books into Greek, they became known later as Septuagint, and that's short for Septuaginta. That's Latin for 70. So you can also say in English the 70. So and that was for long the standard version until the Jewish people got more and more into debate with Christian people about the authenticity of these books, and they wanted to make changes. And then they introduced their own version, and that's how we came to know the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament, or the Tanakh. But most people think that the Tanakh is older than the Greek version, and that is totally not true. If you go and look for the oldest version of the Hebrew Bible, or the Tanakh, or the Old Testament, any word you like to use here, you will find that it's from the Middle Ages, around the year 1000. So it's more than a millennium later. The Hebrew version was written. So it's a huge mistake to go back to Hebrew. That's nonsense. If you really want to understand what's there, then you have to go to the Greek version, the Septuagint version, and then you can start to read what is really there. And that's what I did. I didn't have Greek at school. I'm a little bit sorry for that because I wasn't good at languages. I was very good at mathematics and all the logical stuff, but to me languages were not logical, so I couldn't understand it. But nowadays I do see the logic there a lot, and I learned myself to read Greek and translate it into English, and that's what I've been doing for a while now.
Wow, that's quite a story. Now, what would people have been using before all of this came about, say in the times that are attributed to the times of Jesus? And I'm sure that's a story in and of itself, but what Bible or books would they have been reading from?
Exactly this one, the Septuagint, because people in those days were reading and writing in Greek. So it was all based on Greek. It was not the spoken language, but it was the written language of the people there. They were speaking Aramaic, and they could also write in it, but that was not done. The scholars, the people who were educated, they all used Greek. And also all the books from the New Testament were all written in Greek originally. So it's very simple. Just go back to the Greek versions, both of the books from the New Testament and the books from the Old Testament, and then you know what they were really saying, what was really written down. But you also need to know something else, Jason. The people who wrote these books, they were initiates. They were they in the knowing, so to say. They knew. You can now call it Gnosticism or any other word you like to use it. But they used a kind of hidden language, or you can call it coded language, to explain the truth to others. So only those who knew this code, they could read it. And that's why you find many reference to this in the saying that those who have ears, they can hear, or if you have eyes, you can see. That means you need to understand this coded language. Otherwise, you think it's just a story. But nothing in those books is just a story. It looks like a story, just like Harry Potter looks a story, or Lord of the Rings. But underneath there is some very important knowledge hidden, and that's what I've been trying to make public as good as I can.
Now, would you say this would have links to what people call mystery schools or mystery cults that a lot of people associate with the elite of today?
Yeah, well, absolutely, of course. But the mystery can be used in a good way and in a bad way. Yeah, and of course that's my judgment, so I shouldn't judge. But you can call it in a black way or in a white way, or as Star Wars calls it, the dark side and the light side of the Force. The Force is neutral, and the same is true here. So the insides are neutral, but you can use them in a selfish way or in an altruistic way. You can use your small ego to abuse this knowledge to gain your own, for your own benefit, or you can use this beautiful wisdom and insights to make a better place for every one of us. And that's the decision we all have to make. And the powers that should not be at planetary level, they are serving a very dark agenda. And of course, there's no light there at all. So it's very selfish, and it's all about destruction. But it's the same insight, the same. I can call it technology or wisdom or science. It's all the same. And I've been teaching that too for long, but I teach my students to use it in a light way. So in the way of the true light instead of the pure evil darkness.
Sure. So the safe answer would be that they probably know a lot of the things you're uncovering. They probably already know what's in these things because it's been passed down through their schools or whatever you want to call them for generations upon generations.
Exactly. I never see one of them on my training courses or whatever, or contact me. They know this already. The top of the Freemasons, the top of the Scientology, you can name all those organizations. They are all in the knowing about this. But they also know that there are prophecies in those ancient books, and they want to make sure that those prophecies come true, because then it will serve their own agenda. So they try to bend the stories in a way that favors their interests. And that's why I was able to crack the code here, because what I've been doing so far is very systematic, very precise. So it's like a computer program, and the rhythm they follow is so specific that you don't need to be a genius to see what is coming next. And later on we can talk about that, because then we know what is waiting for us. And it's not that it's plan of the creator, in my opinion. Partly it is, but partly it's also their own abuse of this knowledge, so that they can become create a totalitarian regime on this planet, because that's their ultimate dream.
Sure, and this sounds like what the elite always do. They have knowledge that the common person does not, and they're always using it to their advantage. So the end times prophecies is what we're getting into today. Is this drawn from numerous books of the Bible, or just one, or does this lean on Revelations? What are we taking this from?
Well, many books refer to this. If you, for instance, go to Matthew 24, verse 7, you see, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." And also Luke is referring to that. And later on, in the same chapters, you see more precise references to what is coming. And of course, Revelations is very clear too. But the most profound book, in my opinion, is the book of Daniel, because Daniel had visions, and those visions were very crystal clear, and he wrote them down in also a very precise way. But also here he used coded language to seal the truth. And I was able to crack this seal, so to say. So later on we can go into what Daniel really told us and when it will happen.
Well, let's do that. Is it in a logical order? Does it explain what's going to happen in what order?
Well, he talks about what will happen, and he talks about when it will happen. And I'm not sure where to start with first. I think best is to start with the when, because then if you can delve into that, then you can also go to the next part.
Now, to give everyone a point of time reference, when would Daniel have been having these visions? Is this in the BC era we're talking about?
Yeah, it's certainly in the BC. He talked about the king Nebuchadnezzar, and that king Nebuchadnezzar really lived. And we know what time it was. It was around 500 BC. Let me see if I find the right timing here in my file. Now I can't find it direct, but it's somewhere around 500 BCE that it all happened. He was king. We know that from the Sumerian writings from Mesopotamia, that he was king between 634 BCE until 562. So let's say the sixth century before our current era. And that name is there, so I assume this is all historically correct. And this Daniel guy was really special. One day they tricked him, and he was thrown down in a pit with lions, but somehow his energy was so powerful that the lions didn't even bother to eat him, even though they were hungry. So that was really a remarkable story. If this is a hidden message or not, not sure, but I think everybody is familiar with this story. And there are other indications as well that is all true. For instance, there is the Black Obelisk, and the Black Obelisk writes about people who were brought from that part of the world, from, let's call it Palestine, to Mesopotamia, with names and all kinds of descriptions. So I think every historian can agree with me that it was true that the people in that area were brought to Mesopotamia, and they lived there for a while. And at a certain moment there came a new ruler, and he allowed all of them to go back to their own place of origin. And then they came back to the land of Samaria. So that's all true. So so it's around, let's say 500 BCE, and Daniel was talking about weeks, and that's the first clue here, because the word week, can mean a variety of things. For instance, a whole of 7 days. So it's a unity of 7 days. But we also know somewhere else in the Bible that when they talk about days, it actually means years. A day, for instance, in the first chapter of Genesis, sometimes people interpret it as years. That's not correct. But the fundamental Jewish people, they do that in that way. They say each day of creation was actually a full year. So that means a week can then be a coded message for saying a period of 7 years. And we also know that every seventh year is a special year. It's called a Shemitah year in the Hebrew Bible or Hebrew calendar, sorry. And on top of that, the year after every seventh Shemitah, so that means the year after the 49th year, meaning year 50, it's called a Jubilee year or a Yovel year. So that's for celebration. So we now know that 7 days can be a unity, 7 years can be a unity, but also 7 times 7 years, so 49 years can also be a unity. And that is the clue actually to cracking the code of Daniel, because sometimes he refers to 7 years and sometimes he refers to 7 times 7 years, so 49 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it starts Daniel 9, verse 24. That's where the real work starts, so to say. And he starts by saying, 70 weeks have been determined upon thy people. So what does it mean? How long is this? Is this 70 weeks? So it means 70 times 7 days. Yeah, a little bit more than a year. No, of course not. It's much longer. Is it 70 times 7 years? 490 years? Well, that would be long. That would be before BCE. So that's not that's not actual either. So then there is one option left, and that means 70 times 49 years, and then it starts to make sense. Yeah, because then we talk about 3,430 years. And then if we start counting at the moment where the people, the so-called chosen people, entered Egypt, it's a little bit of a sideway here, but I have to explain it now. Also, the whole story of people in Egypt who were slaves, it's also a coded message, because historic files do not show any evidence that there were slaves in ancient Egypt. So that's not true. So this is coded, and that means there is a hidden story here. But what is important now for us is the timing, and everybody agrees that when those so-called people entered Egypt, which historically never happened, but somehow we can agree on the date, is the year 1876 before our current era. And if we take that as a starting point, and then we know they were in exile for 430 years, so we need to add up those years, then we arrive in the year 1446 before our current era, and then they were 40 years wandering in the wilderness, which is of course a really silly story, but it's all about cracking the code. So just add those 40 years, and then we arrive in the year 1406 before our current era, and that's the starting point. And when we take that starting point and we now add 70 times 7 years, then we arrive in the year 2025. And the year 2025 is the end date of the end times. Yeah, we are about to enter a period which will be very difficult for many of us, but that tough period will end, and that's why they talk about the end times. Actually, it's a period of 7 years, and in those 7 years, some call it the tribulation. So we'll have really tough times to deal with, and many people will probably die or get a lot of trouble. But the good news is it's part of a bigger plan. So in the end, it will all be good, but before we are there, it will be very dark, I think.
Okay, and do you know when exactly the beginning of the worst part is supposed to start?
Yeah, then of course this is the first. So we now have the end year, which is 2025, and now we can look for the beginning, the first year. And for that, we need to understand the way of thinking of the people who are doing this. Yeah. Then we go to Daniel 9, verse 25, so one verse further on. And then it says, "And thou shalt know and understand from the going forth of the command for answering with the building of Jerusalem until the anointed prince shall return. There shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. And the streets shall be built and the wall, and the time shall be exhausted." This is a very strange verse because it says 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Are these people so stupid that they cannot add 7 plus 62, which is 69? Why would they do this? Well, they do this because the word week means something different in both occasions. The first one are 7 times 7 years, while the second one are literally weeks, so 7 days. So that's also in the Greek version it is the very same word. So you cannot find the clue there, but you need to think, and then you can see that those words mean something different. So yeah, and then we go to the building of Jerusalem, and especially the command for answering with the building of Jerusalem. When was that command given? Well, we know when Jerusalem was conquered, and I didn't know about a command was given. I couldn't find it on Wikipedia or anywhere else. So I don't think the command is in the public domain, but I'm quite certain that within the elites or the powers that should not be, this command was really given because they want these prophecies to be fulfilled. So they gave this command, and that was the start of the 6 days war from Israel with the neighboring countries. Yeah, first Egypt and the others as well. And when was the recapture of the old city of Jerusalem? That was in the year 1967 on the date June 7. And in the previous century, we didn't use the word 19. So we said the year 67. So in the 60s and 67, on the date 6-7, so it's again 6-7, double 6-7, 6-7, then Jerusalem was recaptured by the Israeli military. So 6-7 is of course very important because when we look, for instance, at the flag of the USA, we find 7 red stripes and 6 white in between. And 6 plus 7 gives a total of 13. This is not a coincidence. Everything has meaning. And that they picked exactly this date, June 7, is very meaningful too in the year 67. So that's referring to 13. And the USA started with 13 states that were united. In those days, people didn't say the word United States. They just said United States, but united with not a capital U. So it was just a how do you call it? It's an attribute of states, but not part of the name. Anyway, I'm talking too much.
No, it's all right.
But what I was saying is not a coincidence. And when we have this very special date, so June 7 in the year 67, and we add up exactly 7 times 7 years, so 49 years plus these 7 weeks, then we add 62 weeks, which is a total of precisely 50 years and 69 days. And then we arrive at the date of August 14, 2017. So that's not too far from when we are talking now. It's a half year from now.
Mm-hmm.
And what will happen on that date, August 14, 2017? Well, that's what it says in the verse. The anointed prince shall return. And many people make a mistake when they read the New Testament, because there is sometimes you see the reference to Son of Man, and sometimes you see a reference to Son of God. And most ignorant people assume that it's about the same. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth, because this is the very opposite. The Son of God is the Christ, while the Son of Man is the Antichrist. And the anointed prince, which is mentioned in this verse, is in fact the the Antichrist. Sorry. So, what will happen on August 14 next year, 2017, will be the arrival of the Antichrist. Probably this Antichrist is already visible in this world. Maybe this name is already well known, but we don't know yet the identity of this man or woman. I think it's a man. But by that date, the mask will come off, so to say, and everybody will see that it is the Antichrist. But most people will will not be will not understand it correctly, and they will think it is the Christ. So they will confuse the Christ with the Antichrist, and that's exactly what is written down too. So mark in your agenda August 14, 2017, because I think that will be an important date.
Now, I want to ask you more about the figure of the Antichrist, but before I do, I'm curious if there's any relevance to the date of the founding of the modern state of Israel, which is May 14th, 1948.
The only thing I could find on that date is that when you add up all the ciphers, you get a numerological value of 5. And 5 is an opportunity for change. If you understand the system from the East, for instance, Feng Shui or Nine-Star Key or even the Chinese systems, do you know that 5 is in the middle, and from the middle you can go in any direction. So you see major changes happening on a 5 date. For instance, 9/11 was also on a 5 date. So that's the only thing I found. But what is more interesting here to me is the date where the United Nations said, go, it's a good idea to create a country there. There was a resolution passed that it was allowed for the Jewish people to start creating a nation on the soil of the Palestine people. And that resolution was passed on an 11/11/11 date. And that's to me very remarkable. It was passed in the year 47 of the last century. So actually it's 1947, but we can skip the 19, and then we get 4 plus 7 is 11 on the date November 11. So to me that's more meaningful than the date of actually the creation of the unlawful state of Israel.
And for anybody who doesn't really know this yet, although if you're listening to this program, you probably do, the elite really are into numerology. A lot of people study gematria now, and there's always significance to all of these numbers that get bandied around, why they do things at certain times and all that. And I think that just needs to be restated. These things don't happen for just no reason when they happen.
No, it's all about energy. And or you can call it wizardry or magic or any word you like to use it. It's of course black magic the way they use it, but they know that if you use the right ingredients, then the poison that you create or the magic or the trick you want to bring into the world is more powerful. Yeah, for instance, when I write a word in a file of mine and it says stop, do not go further, and I use the color red and I make it bold, then that has more power, has a more powerful impact than when I, for instance, use the color green or make it italic or make it very thin. So I know that using bold letter type and the color red, that is an important ingredient of making this message come through. And that's also with dates. So if you have an event, for instance, a false flag or anything else, a launch, it doesn't really matter what, you have to make sure that you also use the right date to do that. And the date has an energy signature, and you can easily calculate the energy signature. Just like I said, you can add up all the ciphers or the numbers and you get one cipher, and that cipher has a meaning. Yeah, it has an energetically, it corresponds to a certain energy. And if that energy is matching with what you want to accomplish, then it serves you well. But if it's not, then you should have probably picked another date. Yeah, these people we are dealing with, they know all this. They know how to use this black magic, and they don't like coincidences or things that can somehow disturb their goal. So they make sure that all the details are right. And the date is one of the details, but there are many details as well. For instance, the amount of casualties is sometimes also very meaningful, or the place where it is done, or many details can be analyzed, and then you find a lot of meaning there.
Right, and these sorts of things are what a lot of researchers out there are getting the hang of decoding. And not only decoding what's already happened, they're starting to be able to predict what may happen. You know, hey, this date looks like something that they would use. Let's look for an event at this particular time and possibly place.
Yeah, but that's tough. I was asked to give a lecture in Denmark in an open mind conference, and I was asked to come there because they said, "Well, you're good at analyzing this stuff. Can you predict the next false flag attack?" And yeah, that's very difficult because not every 5 date is used for change, and so on, and not every seven day date with a value of 7 is used for an attack either. So you cannot do that. Otherwise, it will be too easy. But you can go the other way. You can go reverse engineering. When you have an event, then you can look at all those details, and most of them are picked very well. That's my conclusion of my research.
Well, I think a lot of people are also looking for possible imagery in mainstream media that's put out there. I know there are a lot of folks looking at the possibility of a false flag in Seattle coming up soon because of a lot of imagery that was put into movies, television, and that sort of thing. So obviously it's not a total shot in the dark, but we don't know exactly what the bad guys have specifically in mind. So we're just trying to do the best we can to disarm them ahead of time, I would say.
Yes, that's the most important thing because they give us these messages in order to get our silent consent, if you want, so that they can go ahead. They're actually telling us via those images in movies and so on, we are planning to do this. And if we all keep quiet, we do not give any response, then we somehow agree that it will happen. And their way of thinking is then they have no negative consequences of this because they informed us about it. Yeah, like the small letters in the contract. If you don't read them, well, that's your problem. But you cannot complain afterwards about the consequences of those small letters or what is written there, because you put your signature there. And that's their way of thinking or reasoning. And that's why it's good to bring it out in the open, because then we actually are saying, no, we do not agree that this is going on. Stop it. We do not put our signature under that so-called contract, and then it will change. I think that's going on for more and more nowadays, thanks to the internet community that is waking up and is sharing this very important information to each other.
Right. And I think it's fair to say that I speak for most people on the planet that, hey, we don't want you to blow up anything in Seattle.
No, I fully agree. Oh, why should we blow up things anyway? We can live in a beautiful harmony with nature. There's abundance, and we don't have to annoy or somehow hinder anyone. We can not animals, plants. We can live in a very beautiful, harmonic way. But yeah, they want us somehow to believe that we need violence and we need to protect ourselves and to attack all threats and so on and so on. And that way of thinking that is so dominant in most brains of humans right now that it's very difficult to break free from that. But it is possible.
Well, I think, especially with modern technology, it is completely possible for the entire planet to live in peace and harmony and plenty for everybody. But this small group of elite people are trying to control a very large group of people, and they're doing it predominantly through fear.
Exactly. And that's a very powerful mechanism, because fear is going directly to the brainstem, and that's at the basis of your brain activity, so to say. The same is with sex, with all the images of nudity, or you see a woman with a short skirt or whatever. The brainstem of man is activated continuously when you watch television. And all the commercials is there. So, and then not only the brainstem is activated, but also the programs that are run by the brainstem too. And those are our instincts, and instincts wants to survive, but it's very focused on fear. So if you are driven by your brainstem constantly, then fear is a very dominant in your way of approaching the world, and you see everywhere danger and threat and so on. Well, if you step up to a higher level of consciousness, then fear, it's beyond fear. Fear is just an illusion. Fear is not real. You can only be fearful for something that will happen in the future, but not for something that is happening right now. Even if you will stand face to face with a lion or a bear or whatever, a snake, a serpent, at that moment you're not afraid because there's no time to be afraid. You just do what you need to do to survive. Fear comes only afterwards, or when you project your thoughts to the future, fear can be there too. And that's why, we have to watch television so much because then they are able to influence our way of thinking, and then we are always worried about the future. Yeah, or we want to buy something so that we can look better in the future, or we want to change our appearance so we can look better in the future. They always want to bring our thoughts to the future, and if you're in the now, it's not. Fear doesn't exist. Fear is really an illusion.
Now, I could even suggest that the story you mentioned earlier of Daniel being thrown into the lion's den, very hungry creatures around him, but he stood up to them in the sense that he has the will to overcome this negativity, and it could be looked at as allegory once again for. Even though we're surrounded by these horrible elite people doing all these terrible things who want to devour us, our own will and light inside of us can stand up and we can survive.
Exactly. And that's also the way to deal with the lions in the real world, so to say, or in the world that we are living in. Because in my world, it's the government. The government acts as a lion, and it can be really threatening. But you have to know how to deal with that government lion, so to say, in order to not be bothered anymore. And I see many people who start to write letters and claim their sovereignty and do all kinds of things to annoy the lion. And I did it myself too, to be honest, in the past. But that's not the way to go forward. You need to understand that the lion lives in his own world and you live in your own world too. So do not interfere with the world of the lion. Just simply live your own life and break free from the illusionary world of the lion, because it's not real.
Right, and that makes total sense to me. And there is a lot of work being done about the whole straw man identity and what the paperwork version of how the elites are using to control us. But I think you're right in the sense that we need to kind of do our own thing and not play in their world because, well, first of all, they're probably always going to have the upper hand. They're always going to know the next thing that we haven't figured out yet. So we're always playing against the house there, as it were. But second of all, the spirit within us, I would suggest, is the true power and not all this paperwork.
No, and you cannot find a solution at the same level as where the problem is originating from. So you have to step up to a higher level. And in a paper-based world, you cannot find a solution on paper. That's the main, that's the bottom line, actually, what I'm trying to say. You need to leave the paper-based world and see that it's all an illusion. How can something be written on paper be real in a natural world? Yeah, if you encounter a lion and you're in the bush, I use the lion again. Or should I use a bear this time? Okay, I'm down in the forest and I'm approaching a bear, and the bear is very hungry and he's thinking of eating me. And what I do is I show him a paper and that declares to the bear that it's not allowed for him to eat me because of rule this and this. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
So we can choose to live in the natural world where paper has no meaning, or we can live in a paper-based world. But then we are actually, I'm not sure if I can use this word, but we are screwed because it's not. There's no solution. It's like you get drawn into a maze, and you can never ever exit when you are identifying yourself with your paper-based identity. That's my conclusion.
Right, and I completely agree with you. But there's a lot to learn, no matter what, to try and at least avoid the pitfalls that they've set up around us. My honest suggestion would be for people to get together in smaller communities and live the best they can away from this controlling society that they've constructed to lock us into.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to cancel your passport or throw away your driving license or whatever, or cut through your cards, your credit cards, whatever. That's not important. Just understand that it's a world, it's a fantasy world, just like you play a game. Yeah, when you're in the computer and you like to play a game. I'm not sure if you're a gamer, Jason, but my younger son is very fanatic. And yeah, he can be really into that, and so he's completely disconnected from the physical world, and he's in that game, and that's dangerous. So you can play that game. You can play the game of the government, that you show your identity card to the police officer. You can play, but it's just a game. And if you are sick and tired of that game, then just say, okay, I'm no longer interested in playing this game anymore. Goodbye. But don't take it too serious. That's the pitfall here. Just see it as a play, as something that is not real. And you have, just like when for instance, when you want to play a game, you want to play baseball. Yeah, the moment you step into the field, you have to follow the rules. Otherwise, yeah, people get annoyed with you, or you get sent out, or whatever. So, but you need to understand that you can also leave the playing field. But the moment you start to play baseball, then you have to apply to the rules that are there. And the same is with real life. That's my understanding.
Well, and we know it's a game because the elite like to cheat by their own rules. We have to follow the rules or we're in trouble, but let's just say, for example, Hillary Clinton doesn't have to. She doesn't get in trouble for the things we get in trouble for. So it's their game, and we don't have to play it.
No, but she can get into trouble by sending emails through a different account, and they can make a lot of trouble about it. But of course, there's an agenda behind this too, and yeah, I think you and I think all your listeners do. We are not really we do not believe the news stories too literal. So we know
No.
there's something going on behind it as well. And yeah, for us, it's also a game. I fully agree. And you can start to comment on the game and try to analyze the game and see who's winning. But I think it's a waste of energy. I think the best way is focus your all your energy on your own game and see what you can create. What difference do you want to make today? What can you really do today? And do that instead of yeah thinking about what will happen in Syria, what is the situation with Russia, what is this, what is that, how's the money system when it will collapse, and what will Donald Trump do? And I think yeah you can of course waste all your day thinking about this and writing articles and going to YouTube and see what other people think about this and go to websites and read all about it. But in the end, what have you really accomplished? So my advice is focus on what you can do now. Focus your energy on what you can change in your life right now and do that. And for the rest, I think it's not worth spending too much time on.
Right. And I think the thing to just know about it, to sum it all up, is we are being controlled by horrible people doing terrible things, and you need to be the best you can be to go against that and not let them drag you down.
No. And yeah, also, they need us to do those horrible things, Jason. They don't do them themselves. So they need us to perform this because they know that if they have really blood on their hands, that will bounce back. What goes around comes around. So they need us, to perform all these dirty things. And if you have the famous saying that if somebody declares war and nobody's going, then there is no war. But it's very simple like that. So they play it very cleverly, very cleverly. They manipulate everything, and who is at the top of this whole system is also not clear. But yeah, the bottom line is the people who are doing it. So pushing the buttons, killing other people, or taking the blows. These are not the part of the real top of the organization.
Right. And it makes me sad every time I hear of some young man or woman signing up for the military. I'm just like, you're playing their game. But that's neither here nor there at this point. I mean, and that's why I do what I do. I'm trying to get as much info out there as possible and try and awaken as many minds as possible, because you've got to realize that you've got to stop participating in what they do. You know, nothing is going to stop them from sending you over to the Middle East to kill people for oil. You know, that is what you join the military. That is what you're going to do, at least in today's world.
Yeah, no, that's something else than what people thought they were doing. But also in the military, there are many men and women who are waking up, but they are in a tough situation because they need the salary to support their family and themselves. So I think more and more people will wake up, and at a certain moment, people will just stop pressing the button to send another cruise missile to another place somehow. Instead of that, people are all abandoning the police force and the military. I don't think that will happen. It would be good, but um, most people could not handle that. So I think the change will come from within the military, from within the police force, and also from within the healthcare system, for instance, and so on. The financial system. Those systems will all collapse, but the people who are working now there, they together have to find a solution to overcome all the trouble that is ahead for us.
Right, and that's the way it needs to happen. People who are starting to get it and really wake up to things in those individual systems, they need to spread the word to their fellows, and then we can work from the inside out to free ourselves from this. But I still think that a lot of what we can do to combat this situation is to start independent communities that are completely self-sufficient, full of like-minded people, and if enough pockets of resistance against the system start springing up all over the planet, there's only so much they can combat against.
Yeah, I fully agree. That's the way forward. And independent, self-sufficient, and off the grid. Then that's the most stable solution. Because I think the electricity, the power grid will collapse one day too. And if you're able to create your own electricity, then you're not in trouble. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, and we can. The technology exists now to do it, especially if you're not doing it on a New York City-wide scale, but you're doing it on a small community scale. Absolutely, you can have completely free, clean energy from some other source other than some sort of fossil fuel or nuclear energy or whatever it happens to be. But I've put this idea out there a lot to friends lately, and I'm trying to do it more on a wider scale. People need to band together, start their own communities, and make it very well known what they're doing. You know, the internet is absolutely, it's used by the enemy to propagandize us, but it also can be used by us to do the opposite. You know, to say, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it, and you can do it too. Here's how you make clean water. Here's how you make electricity. Here's how you have a system of government that's not controlled by a bunch of really bad people, you know, and I think that this is the way forward. But anyway, I feel like we may have gotten away from what we were originally speaking about. The Antichrist figure. Let's discuss that.
I think we should go to the second Gulf War. Maybe you remember the situation where all the soldiers came out, the Iraqi soldiers came out of the tanks and with their hands up in the air, and they surrendered without, for any reason at all. Do you remember that news story, Jason?
Well, it happened in the first Gulf War and in the second Gulf War because they just couldn't withstand the firepower of what the United States military was doing.
Yeah, that's what we've been told officially.
Right.
But in the second time, they used technology that people heard voices in their head. The Iraqi soldiers heard a voice of Allah, that's what they thought, in their head, telling them to surrender. And that's what they did. And it was the first time it was used on this scale to use this kind of technology. So that is, we know we can hear through air. Yeah, when we are together, we can hear through air. We can hear through water. Underwater, we can hear as well. Or you can put your ear on the ground, and then you can hear, for instance, a truck that is coming towards you. Or what the cowboys did, they listen if a train was coming through the rail. So we can hear through solid material, through liquid material, and through air. But the fourth one, people don't know about that. I call it fire, but that is through radiation. And we can also learn to use fire or radiation to enable to give information or to produce sound. And that's the technology they have now used. And what will happen, I think, is that everybody will hear the moment we see the face of the Antichrist in our own language, very divine words. So it will be clear for everyone through direct suggestion to the brain that this is the the Messiah, the long-awaited Savior for the Hindustan people, for the Muslims, for the Christians, for everyone. And that is the trick they're gonna pull upon us. And if you're not aware of this, then you will certainly fall for it, because they will use all kinds of other technology as well. With Project Blue Beam, they can project anything in the sky, so it might look fantastic. It will be a great show. I think 9/11 is just simple a rehearsal of what will come in the next year. So people will be fooled by this, big time.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I'm sure they looked at 9/11 sociologically as well to see, well, what impact did this large-scale event have on the masses, and what can we learn from this for the next one?
Exactly, exactly. In my opinion, it was a triple A performance. It was first A was for the technology, because when you understand what really happened, then the technology used is very, very advanced. The second A was for the timing, because numerologically it's very important. Of course, the five I already mentioned it, but also in relation to the Mayan calendar. It was on a very precise moment in which people were actually um, breaking free from the old way of thinking to a new one, and that was the perfect moment to stop that. So the second A was for the timing, and the third A was for the mind control program that was released directly afterwards, and even before that, because you already mentioned predictive programming in the beginning, but if you see how many times 9/11 was mentioned in the time prior to the September 11 events in 2001, it's very, very much. It was in the Matrix. It was in the film with Sylvester Stallone. What's the name called? Where he was the robot guy. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and many other movies as well. And yeah, I don't know all of those, but there were many references. So they before, at the time, and afterwards, the whole idea of mind control was pushed to a new level, and that's the third A they deserved with that performance.
Right. So basically what this all boils down to is they're going to project sound that the human ears can hear through whatever respective medium they're going to use by stimulating certain frequencies.
Yeah, it's going directly into the brain. Even if you can't hear with your own ears, if your ears not working well, you can still hear it, because they create um, the words in your brain.
Right, and you've heard people bring these things up over the years that it's almost like an outside projection is coming directly into their mind, which to me suggests that they're doing tests on whomever they're choosing just to see if it'll work and have the desired effect. And if indeed these stories are true, then yeah, the technology works and seems to work very well because it's driving these people mad.
Yes, and then we go back to the Second World War with Operation Paperclip. It already in Germany, people were using mind control techniques, and seeing how far we can go, and what is the most effective way to brainwash people. And this was perfectionized in by the CIA first with the program MK Ultra, sorry, Mind Control Ultra, and then with the Monarch program, and maybe there are other programs as well. So, yeah, I think this is going on for 60 years now. They are very, very advanced in using these techniques. So, mind control for them is the most effective and also the cheapest way to control people. All the other ways are more, they take more resources. This is a very efficient one.
You know, it wouldn't even surprise me, not that I have any direct evidence of this, that they've already got a huge grid set up with the mobile system, you know, with cellular telephones. Everybody's walking around with a phone in their pocket, and they've got towers everywhere. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if those could be used in a more sinister fashion than just communications and data transfer.
Yeah, to me too. I don't have a smartphone myself. I think I'm smart enough myself. It's a joke, but when I, for instance, see my children or other people, they are constantly watching that. And when there is my daughter, for instance, had a problem that it had to be fixed for 1 or 2 days. She didn't have a mobile phone, and she was completely she was lost. So people are so addicted already. It's not only the information they're addicted to, but the whole idea. So I think this is a very clever way to inform people about what they should know, and that's of course there's a big filter on top of that. So they are already feeding most of the people with the food, the information food that they want those people to eat. So it's on their way. People talk about transhumanism like it's far in the future, but to me, this is already a big step towards transhumanism.
Oh, I agree completely. I think that this is maybe an exterior form of melding man with machine. You know, with this, with the Apple Watches and iPhones, and I mean, how many people work in front of a computer for goodness knows how many hours a day? And then you go home, plop your butt in the couch, and then you're connecting to another device. You know, sitting in front of the television, and I'd say they've already got us on that path. Generally, Western culture has completely accepted technology as this is the way it is and the way of the future, and it's just going to keep being that way, and it's just going to get better and better and better, so that when we get to the point where we actually want to start melding physical machinery into our bodies, it's just the next step. And of course, I'm quite confident they will do this very slowly and carefully, but incrementally, moving forward. For instance, hey, people who have disabilities, we have a means of connecting this to this and making you better. And I already see such things happening with people I even know. So we'll see. We'll see how far this goes and if people start waking up to what's really going on.
Yeah, they have a long-term vision, and they do it very gradually. If it doesn't going on a way they want, they just adapt and they go through a different way. So they're very flexible, but they have a long-term vision, and that vision is very, very clear to them. That's of course the merger between man and machine, and more machine part will come in then, because they want control. They want maximum control, and the problem with the wetware of human beings is it can do different things. Yeah, we can suddenly decide to do it differently. Well, my computer does not do that. So they want 100% control, and that means that the human part has to become lesser and lesser in order to create a very obedient, how we call it, creature.
Right, and if you're completely wired into a machine to the literal point your consciousness is interacting with it, I mean, that's the ultimate control grid, because who's going to control the machines? Not you. Oh no, it's going to be them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's obvious where this is going, you know?
Yeah, but the problem I have is my work is related to computers a lot. So what should I do? I want to inform the world that we can do it differently, but in order to reach out, I need the computer. We are talking now, and I need my computer to talk with you, Jason. I make presentations and I put them on YouTube, but people need computers to watch those videos and read my articles. So it's a blessing, but it's also a threat.
Well, a tool is just a tool. It's however you use it. I mean, a knife can be used to cut up your salad, or it could be used to stab somebody. I mean, the knife itself is not evil, and computers and all this technology, it's just the same thing, how you use it. I don't even know what I do without a computer. I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I couldn't be an audio engineer. I couldn't put out my own show. I would have to be on a radio station somewhere if this was 50 years ago and hope to get ratings. And if they decide they don't want my show anymore, well, you're canceled. Go away. You know, and so it's all depends upon what you use the tools for, and we're going to use it for what we would say is good purposes, and the bad guys are going to use it for their nefarious, selfish purposes.
Exactly. It's the same as magic. It's the very same. So it's not the tools. The hammer is the hammer. The knife is the knife, and internet is the internet. But do you use it in a black way or in a white way?
And knowing what I know about magic, and I've seen some interesting things, I'll just leave it at that. It's also just a tool.
Indeed.
You can. It almost works like a computer program. You can program it to do what you want it to do, for better or for worse.
Yeah, but the only thing with magic is it's very important your own level of understanding, because the higher your level is, the more powerful it works. It's actually the same with a carpenter. A hammer is a hammer, but a very skillful carpenter can use that hammer in a more efficient way than somebody who's just starting to learn the profession, so to say. And the same is true with magic. And the purpose of all those mystery schools from the ancient days was to increase the level of consciousness of the magician or the sorcerer, if you want. And because the techniques can be explained easily. I give a training course now. You can also watch it online. It has 30 videos, and I explain it in full detail. But that's just the technique. It becomes really interesting when you understand that it's actually more about the magician than about the technique of magic.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just how strong your will is, how much you believe in yourself.
That's one of it, and other is how pure is your own energy, and how much is there a unity within you, and all those things. So you can see it as magic is a kind of magnifying glass, and you are a kind of light. And the brighter your light is, the more power you can create with a magnifying glass, and in such a way that you can actually make something burn. With the sun, we can do that. When we put it on the right distance, we can make fire with a magnifying glass. And the same is true with our own light. So if our own light is bright enough, then we can create very powerful magic. But if our own light is very dim, you can create an effect, but it's not really big.
That's the end of part 1. I decided to split this interview into 2 parts since we went over 2 hours, and I want it to have the most impact as possible. I know 2 hours is a long time to listen to one program, so hopefully you'll enjoy what we went through in part 1 and come back for part 2. That's it for this time. We'll see you soon.
Will speak, manifest. This I be, my angel, for all to see.